Christianity. In Christianity, the devil is understood as the supreme embodiment of evil and opposition to God. He is most commonly identified as Satan, a once beautiful angel named Lucifer who fell from grace due to pride and rebellion. The Christian devil is not merely a symbol of wickedness, but a real personal being who actively works to deceive, tempt, and destroy. The origin of the devil is rooted in the story of Lucifer, whose name means light bringer or morning star. Though the name itself appears in Isaiah 14:12, originally referring to a Babylonian king, early Christian theologians reinterpreted it as a description of Satan's fall. According to this tradition, Lucifer was a high-ranking angel who became proud and attempted to ascend to the throne of God. As a result, he was cast out of heaven, along with a third of the angels who joined him. In the book of Job, Satan appears not as a rebellious enemy of God, but as a member of the divine court, a prosecutor allowed by God to test the faith of Job. However, in the New Testament, Satan's role becomes more clearly antagonistic. He is portrayed as the tempter of Jesus in the wilderness, the father of lies, and the ruler of a kingdom in direct opposition to God. Christian theology teaches that Satan's power is real, but limited by God. He can only act within the boundaries God allows. Ultimately, Christian eschatology promises that Satan will be defeated. According to Revelation 20, after a final battle, the devil will be thrown into the lake of fire, where he will be eternally punished, marking the final triumph of God over evil. In Islam, the devil is primarily known as Iblis, a supernatural being who defied Allah and became the leader of all that is evil. Unlike Christianity, where the devil is a fallen angel, Islam makes a sharp distinction. Iblis was not an angel but a jinn, a race of beings made from smokeless fire. This distinction is crucial because angels in Islam, made of light, are inherently obedient and do not have free will, whereas jinn possess free will and can choose to obey or disobey. The story of Iblis is told in several places in the Quran. For example, when Allah created Adam, he commanded all the angels and Iblis to bow to him as a sign of respect. The angels obeyed, but Iblis refused out of pride, saying, "I am better than him. You created me from fire and created him from clay." For this act of arrogance and defiance, Allah cast him out of divine grace. However, Iblis requested a reprieve until the day of judgment so he could prove that humanity was unworthy. Allah granted his request. From that point on, Iblis took on the role of Shaitan, which means the rebellious or the stray. He vowed to mislead humans from the straight path, using whispers, false promises, and temptation. Iblis is not considered equal to God or a rival deity. Islam is strictly monotheistic and does not entertain a dualistic view of good versus evil powers. Iblis is ultimately a servant of God's will. Even in his rebellion, he plays a part in the divine test of human free will. Humans are not doomed by Iblis's whispers. They are responsible for their choices and will be judged accordingly. In Islamic eschatology, Iblis's fate is sealed. He and those who follow him will be cast into hell, also known as Jahannam, on the day of judgment. In Zoroastrianism, in this religion, the concept of the devil is embodied in Angra Mainyu, also known as Ahriman. He is the destructive spirit, the cosmic antagonist of Ahura Mazda, the supreme god of light, wisdom, and truth. Zoroastrianism presents one of the oldest dualistic religious systems in the world, where good and evil are not just forces, but conscious, opposing entities. According to the Avesta, the sacred text of Zoroastrianism, Angra Mainyu is the source of all chaos, falsehood, darkness, disease, and death. While Ahura Mazda created order, Angra Mainyu created the lie. Their struggle is cosmic and moral, influencing the physical world as well as the hearts and actions of human beings. Unlike the Christian or Islamic devil, Ahriman is not a rebellious servant of the Creator. Instead, he exists as an independent and eternal force that stands in direct opposition to Ahura Mazda. In some interpretations, especially later ones influenced by Zoroastrianism, a sect of Zoroastrianism, both Angra Mainyu and Ahura Mazda were considered twins, born of Zuravan, the god of infinite time. This emphasizes their equal and opposing nature, though traditional Zoroastrianism holds that Ahura Mazda will ultimately triumph. Angra Mainyu's influence manifests through Daevas, malicious spirits who deceive and corrupt humans, turning them away from truth and righteousness. These beings were once minor gods in pre-Zoroastrian Iranian religion, but were demonized by the prophet Zarathustra as part of his reform. Under Ahriman's command, they spread lies, incite violence, and sow confusion. Zoroastrianism teaches that life is a battleground between the forces of good and evil. Every human action contributes to the cosmic balance. Through good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, individuals support Ahura Mazda in the battle against Angra Mainyu. This makes human moral responsibility central to the faith. In Gnosticism, the figure that most closely resembles the devil is not a tempter or fallen angel, but a false god known as the Demiurge. Unlike mainstream Christianity, which sees God as the benevolent creator of the universe, Gnostics believed that the material world was created by a lesser, ignorant, and often malevolent being. This being, the Demiurge, is the source of illusion, suffering, and spiritual entrapment. The term Demiurge comes from the Greek word demiurgos, meaning craftsman or artisan. In Gnostic cosmology, the true God exists in a realm of pure spirit and light, entirely beyond the physical universe. From this divine source emanate spiritual beings called aeons, one of whom, Sophia, which is wisdom, accidentally brings forth the Demiurge through an act of flawed creation. The Demiurge, unaware of the higher spiritual realms, falsely believes he is the only God and begins to create the physical world. This Demiurge is often associated with the Old Testament God, a deity portrayed in some Gnostic texts as jealous, wrathful, and blind. His famous line from Exodus, "I am a jealous God and there is no other," is seen in Gnostic thought as a tragic declaration of ignorance. He is sometimes named Saklas, fool, or Samael the blind god. These names emphasize his spiritual blindness and arrogant ignorance. The Demiurge is not alone. He creates a host of archons, lower cosmic rulers or authorities, who help him maintain control over the physical world. These archons act as prison guards of the soul, using religion, law, and fleshly desires to keep humans distracted from their divine origin. According to the Gnostics, the human soul is a divine spark trapped in a false material shell, and the Demiurge is the warden of that prison. Buddhism. In Buddhism, the concept of the devil is best represented by Mara, a powerful yet symbolic figure who personifies temptation, illusion, and spiritual death. Unlike in Christianity or Islam, the devil in Buddhism is not an eternally evil being opposed to a supreme god, but rather a metaphorical and sometimes literal presence that hinders spiritual awakening. The most well-known story involving Mara comes from the life of Siddhartha Gautama, the historical Buddha. As Siddhartha meditated under the Bodhi tree, determined to reach enlightenment, Mara appeared to obstruct his path. He first sent his beautiful daughters to seduce him with sensual desire. When that failed, he unleashed terrifying demons to frighten him, followed by casting doubt into Siddhartha's mind, questioning his worthiness. But Siddhartha remained calm and unwavering. In response, he touched the earth with one hand to call it as witness to his lifetimes of virtue, symbolizing his right to attain enlightenment. This iconic gesture defeated Mara, who vanished. In psychology, especially depth psychology and the work of Carl Jung, the devil is not viewed as a literal being, but rather as a symbol of the unconscious, particularly the aspects of the self that are denied, repressed, or feared. This idea is encapsulated in Jung's concept of the shadow, the dark, hidden part of our personality that we often refuse to acknowledge. The shadow includes traits we dislike, impulses we reject, and emotions we suppress. Rather than being inherently evil, the shadow is morally neutral. It simply contains what the conscious ego refuses to integrate. In this view, the devil is not an external tempter or supernatural entity, but the embodiment of our own inner darkness. It's the voice inside us that whispers envy, rage, lust, or cowardice, qualities we pretend not to have, yet which often drive our behavior from beneath the surface. This internal devil thrives in secrecy. When ignored, it can manifest in destructive behaviors, compulsions, addictions, or psychological projections, where we attribute our denied traits onto others and view them as the enemy. In Hinduism, there is no single devil figure analogous to Satan or Iblis. Instead, evil is expressed through various beings and forces, most notably the Asuras. The term Asura originally meant divine in early Vedic texts, but over time it evolved to mean demonic or anti-divine beings who often oppose the Devas, which are gods. The conflict between Asuras and Devas is central to many Hindu myths and epics, representing the eternal struggle between order and chaos, dharma, righteousness, and adharma, unrighteousness. Asuras are not purely evil in the Western moral sense. They are often powerful, ambitious, and proud, but not inherently wicked. In many stories, their downfall comes from ego, excessive desire, or the misuse of power, not from some inborn evil nature. This makes them more tragic and complex than outright villains. They sometimes even engage in severe penance and spiritual practice to gain boons from the gods, only to misuse those powers later. A classic example is the story of Ravana, the 10-headed king of Lanka from the Ramayana. Ravana is an asura who is deeply learned in the Vedas, a capable ruler and a powerful devotee of Lord Shiva. Yet his arrogance and desire lead him to abduct Sita, the wife of Lord Rama, triggering the events that lead to his destruction. Ravana is not a devil figure, but a deeply flawed soul who embodies how power and wisdom can become corrupted by unchecked ego. Another famous Asura is Hiranyakashipu from the Bhagavata Purana. He seeks immortality and tries to ban the worship of Lord Vishnu. His son Prahlada remains devoted to Vishnu despite his father's threats. Eventually, Vishnu appears in his man-lion avatar, Narasimha, to destroy Hiranyakashipu and protect the righteous. Again, the Asura is destroyed not because he is evil by nature, but because of tyranny, pride, and disrespect for divine order. Interestingly, some traditions within Hinduism depict Asuras and Devas as spiritual cousins, both born from the same father, sage Kashyapa, but from different mothers. This reinforces the idea that the forces of good and evil are part of the same cosmic family, a necessary duality in the unfolding of the universe. Alchemy. In alchemy, the devil is not portrayed as a horned being or a moral villain, but rather as a symbol of primal chaos, spiritual darkness, and the inner impurities that must be faced and transmuted. The devil appears most vividly in the Nigredo stage of the alchemical process, also known as the blackening, or the stage of putrefaction and decomposition. In this phase, the alchemist undergoes a symbolic death, confronting the most shadowy aspects of the self in preparation for rebirth and transformation. Nigredo is the stage where the ego is broken down, illusions are stripped away, and the alchemist descends into spiritual darkness. This descent is terrifying and often likened to hell or a state of madness. It is here that the devil emerges, not as an external force, but as the dark mirror of the soul, confronting the alchemist with everything unresolved, repressed, and impure. The devil in this context is the guardian of transformation. He stands at the threshold of enlightenment, testing the alchemist's resolve. Alchemical texts often represent this figure as Saturn, the planet of restriction, death, and time. Saturn rules over decay and limitation, but also over wisdom earned through suffering. Sometimes the devil is symbolized as a black dragon, whose body must be dismembered and burned before the true gold, the purified soul, can be revealed. The dragon devours the unready, yet to the one who persists, it becomes the source of alchemical fire. Another recurring symbol is the green lion, which devours the sun, a metaphor for the soul being consumed by its own darker instincts before being purified. These images are not meant to evoke religious damnation, but rather psychospiritual transformation.